Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to It's Fight and Flight. How you doing, Blake?
Yeah, good. Oh, Blake, so I'm jumping straight.
Oh, just jump straight in.
I'm straight in. I'm having Blake's job already. Look at that.
Well, to be fair, we should have already said how we're doing in previous parts.
No one cares how I'm doing.
I think he's mistaken you for me, is what's happened there, Tom. Stu's getting on a bit in age.
That's exactly what it is, mate.
What's going on from 1 minute to the next? But Thomas Turgoose, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me, lads. It's a great pleasure. Yeah.
We're very pleased to have you on, mate.
And so I'm a little bit curious, like how good's your knowledge of MMA, Tommo?
I mean, I spoke to Blake before. I wouldn't say that I'm a huge MMA UFC fan. I'm more of a boxing fan, more of football. But I'm one of them. If there's a fight going on, not so much nowadays because for obvious reasons with COVID, but if there's a fight going on, you know, if McGregor's fighting or anything like that, you know, and there's a bit of a thing going on where my mates have a bit of a session, we get together and it's just really an excuse for me really to see the boys and just be part of it. I like a little bet on them every now and then, but yeah, I wouldn't set an alarm for 5 a.m. to get up and watch a fight per se. But yeah, I'm one of them. I'm a big fan of hard work and having watched the fights that I have watched over the years and the fight that you two told me to watch. I mean, you can tell the hard work that goes into the preparations for that. And I've got a few friends who are from Grimsby who are professional fighters. And I mean, the work and the dedication that goes into the sport is just incredible, really. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of that. But yeah, I mean, I do like it, but I probably wouldn't go out of my way. I mean, I wouldn't pay £1,000 for a ticket to go to an event, let's say, but I would watch it if it was on. Yeah.
And you talk about the dedication and witnessing your friends doing that. I mean, also co-star and friend Andrew Shim has obviously been in the cage a few times, hasn't he?
He has, and he's very good, and he's one of them that's very committed to something that he does. And I actually went to one of his fights. Is it K1? He's doing so he did
it.
Yeah, so he did. He had a K1 fight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sounding really silly now.
But
he had a K1 fight in Leicester, and I went along to watch that. And obviously, Shimmy's a really good friend of mine, and he lost the fight sadly. And I didn't realize how seriously they take it because after the fight, I went into the dressing room, and the first thing that I said to Andrew Shim was, "Well, that was shit. I want my money back." And I've never seen him look at me like he wants to kick my face in before. So yeah, I learned the hard way. But yeah, I know. I know Shimmy's always been very committed in everything that he does, and yeah, I mean he's solid. He's solid. If there was one man that you wanted, you know, behind you in a bar fight, I think Shim would be the man. Probably one of the hardest kids I know, really, but he's one of the most gentle men you'll ever meet as well. Like you'll know Stu, but yeah, he's committed to it.
Wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fight we've asked you to watch, Rory McDonald, Robbie Lawler 2.
Yeah.
I mean, before we start breaking it down,
I mean, it was an incredible fight. It was. I mean, and you know what as well. From watching not only this fight and fights before, because I'm a big fan of boxing. I really enjoy boxing. And, you know, when with MMA and at the UFC in particular, there's a lot of groundwork, a lot goes on the ground. And that's where I start to get a bit like, because I don't understand it. And I know that there's so much that goes into it. And, you know, like you guys who are obviously big fans of the UFC and MMA, they, you know, when they go to the ground, the technicality of everything that's going on, you know, you can watch it and you can see the slip-ins of the arms and the elbows and everything that's going on. Whereas I'm just a bit like, oh, well, can you just get up and punch each other? But I mean, the fight between them two, I mean, it was just a slugging match, wasn't it? Brilliant fight.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I mean, I am obviously more of an MMA fan, and there's some of the grappling exchanges that I find very exciting, and the technical aspect of it is brilliant. But because, you know, I am just an armchair fan, effectively, there's a lot of aspects of that technical grappling that I still don't understand. And I'm very reliant on the commentary before I can really go, oh, this person's trying this, or, oh, they're open to this submission here, or something like that. So, and there are moments, particularly with some of the wrestling styles that we've seen from Khabib in the past, and now with Makhachev recently, this kind of the Dagestani Russian Sambo style of wrestling, where particularly earlier on in Khabib's career, before he started
Khabib's the guy who used to fight with bears. Is that right?
Yes, videos of him fighting bears, which are brilliant.
I mean, who doesn't? I'm from Grimsby. We fight bears all the time. That was incredible.
But that aspect of the wrestling, that Sambo style, where they are really heavy and on top, I do at times still find that a little bit frustrating to watch, because there's not enough action going on. It's brutal. It's very dominant. You can really respect the craft of it, but as a fan, it doesn't excite me. I would always much rather see a Lawler McDonald fight than Makhachev laying on Dover like we saw the other week. And so I think your opinion of MMA and some of the grappling, even some big fans of it would share that opinion, I think.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I watched a fight not long ago. It was Max Holloway and Keita.
Keita, yes.
See, that was incredible. That was like, I couldn't, and you know what? I guess it, like, the cockiness of Max Holloway when he's just dancing around, and did he say to the refs or something like, I'm the best boxer in the UFC, or something along them lines? And I kind of like, I think Conor McGregor's sort of like arrogance. Sometimes I think, oh God, but I'm not really a massive fan of arrogance in sports anyway, but I mean, the way he was doing that and just dodging the punches, I'm just thinking, Jesus, that's so impressive.
There's a difference between arrogance and the trash talking, and being in there and backing it up and just being aware of how brilliant you are, I think.
You are, but I almost thought like it was a bit like, I almost felt sorry for Keita. How do you pronounce it? Keita.
Calvin Keita,
Calvin Keita. So I almost felt a bit sorry for him when Holloway's sort of like dancing around him and just sort of like almost not paying attention to the fight itself. And I'm just a bit like, oh God. But I guess if you can do it, then you will do it, I guess, won't you?
Well, I think also it's actually in relation to, I think Calvin Keita in the lead up to that fight said that he was the best boxer, like traditional boxer in the UFC. And Daniel Cormier, who's one of the commentators and a former double champ in the UFC, he is very good friends with Max Holloway. And so I think Calvin Keita said that Daniel Cormier may have reiterated it earlier on in the week, in the fight week, that, that's what Calvin Keita's saying. And so Max Holloway was almost shouting to his buddy, like, I'm the best boxer.
Well, fair enough then. Fair enough. He bought it on himself. He bought it on himself, didn't he?
Yeah, and is something like also Calvin Keita said that, like, I think because Max Holloway may be slightly younger than him, even though Max Holloway's achieved a lot more. And I think he said Max Holloway's like the freshman and I'm the senior. And also Max Holloway shouted something like, the freshman's come to play tonight. And all this stuff. So you're like, mate, if giving you this in the fight week, then have it. And you're lighting him up on the day. I mean, I also think that fight maybe could have been stopped early. I think Calvin Keita was taking a hell of a lot of damage.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was just like, I mean, just the accuracy of Holloway's punches, and it's just how easy he made it look. It was one of them that I just sort of stumbled across it, and then I was texting one of my friends, Pete, who's a huge UFC fan, and I texted him just saying, "Are you watching this fight?" And he was like, "This is one of the best fights I've ever seen." Like, it was just, and it's just so luckily that I stumbled across that one amazing fight, But it's just incredible. It really is. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it myself. I'll tell you that for nothing, boys. I won't be able to do that.
Well, if we're going to talk about, fights that saw ridiculous amounts of punishment being dished out, then I guess it makes sense that we start to talk about Robbie and Rory, because fucking hell, it's just ridiculous levels of brutality.
It was a bloodbath, wasn't it? It was genuinely a bloodbath, and you know what? It was incredible to see the turnaround. I mean, the first round, I think Emily said something on an earlier episode of the podcast that the first round can sometimes be a little bit not I don't want to say boring, but they're sort of sizing each other up. They're trying to find gaps. They're trying to figure out what's what. But I think the end of round 3, I think it was, when Lawler is getting pummeled. It's to the point where I'm thinking he's going to have to stop here soon. And then even to the beginning of the 4th round, when he comes out and just gets him again straight away, and he gets him up against the cage, and you're thinking, God, this has got to stop. And then for him to turn that around to then finish the fight, I just think that's just the heart that these guys have got is just incredible. It's ridiculous.
Definitely.
Watching it back was really interesting for me as well, because I remember that fight, I in my head, was a headliner of an event, but it actually wasn't. It was the co-main event to McGregor versus
main event,
Mendez. And
wow.
So that was the co-main event. Then McGregor Mendez happened afterwards. But I was watching it, and in my head, because this forever has been like my favorite fight. Where if anyone ever said to me, what's your favorite UFC fight? I would have said, up until now, Rory McDonald, Robbie Lawler, UFC 189. But I have to say, watching it back, I think, I don't know if that whole thing, you look back on things with rose-tinted glasses, and in my memory, this was a back and forth slugfest from start to finish.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's like the first round is exactly what you said. They're really feeling each other out. And even by the end of round 2, I wrote a note going, I don't remember it being like this. Like, when does this get to that kind of legendary point that it is in my brain? I don't know how you felt, Stu, because this was your favourite fight as well, wasn't it? For a long time.
I think in round 2, I mean, that, like, to agree with both of you, it's like first round, they're just sizing each other up and they're cautious because obviously whatever they've done in prep, they don't know what this fight is going to bring into the octagon when it happens. And so there was a bit of standing out. But I could see in round 2, the faces were reddening. Like, Rory's face was really going red already before like anything was sort of split. And it was like the shots were just brutal, and both of them were throwing so quick as well. And obviously Rory fights a bit more at range, and his straight rights were just amazing. But I think at the end of the second, I think Robbie broke his nose at the end of the second. I think the nose got broke in the second, and then I think even in the third, when Rory came out, he was fighting with his mouth open, so you could tell he was breathing through his mouth. So his nose, I mean, we'll get to the end, I suppose, but oh my God, like having your nose broke. Oh, I mean, even if you tap yourself on the nose, it really smarts, right? And
your eyes water, don't they? You know, when you're a kid, you get banged on the nose in front of all your mates, and you're like, I'm not crying. Yeah, it's incredible.
And obviously, it was just like to then just have someone like Robbie Lawler continuously unloading on a broken nose, it doesn't bear thinking about, like,
because they know as well, don't they? They know as a fighter, they know that they'll think, right, well, I've done damage to his nose here, so I'm going for the nose. They know that they've weakened that spot, so that's where they're going for. They're going to try and cause maximum damage. And it's like you said, but even just the jabs even just the I don't want to call it the warm-up round, but the first round where they're sort of sizing each other, even just the jabs and stuff, they're so accurate. And I'm thinking, if I got caught with one of them, that's it. I'm out. That's it. I'm done. I'm finished. And it's just like they can just take that. But I guess they spend all day, every day in training, don't they? Work, sort of getting punched in the face for a living. It's incredible.
I think that's the one thing you can't train, though. The heart that they have, that Rory has to keep going throughout the whole fight. Because as you say, Stu, I think really early on, his face was reddening. And it's probably round 2 that maybe his nose broke. And he went on for 2 and a bit rounds after that. Yeah. You can't teach that level of heart and drive and the want to be a champion. I mean, I've got like the quote from Rogan was just, I think at the end of, or was it maybe around round 3, where Rogan just went, Rory's face is a mask of blood. Like you could see more blood than face. It was just ridiculous how battered his face looked in that. And then the spray on all of the, because it was coming from the nose, you could see that canvas, that you could see a bit of blood behind Rory at the very start of the fight that happened from a previous fight. But after that, the entire canvas was just like something out of the Tate Modern. It was just like spray everywhere.
Cut 2, I think it was at the beginning of the round 3. at the end of round 2, at the beginning of round 3, there's a shot of Rory and he stands up and blood is genuinely pouring out of his nose. It's genuinely like a stream of blood, and it's just like Blake was just saying, the heart and the desire to win and to want to be the best, to go through that is just it's maximum passion, isn't it? It's just you don't get much, you know. It's just incredible.
I think that's when his corner says, "Don't clear your nose," because so many boxers and fighters then blow, and then that's when you see the eyes shut because it just feels, and it's like it's just because obviously if you've got a full nose, your instant thing to do is to, you know, clear your nose, and like and obviously he was like, don't clear your nose, don't clear your nose, and to just the thought that, you know, you're gassed anyway, you know, you've had everything, and then you're standing there and you can't breathe properly, and you're about to go out there and get more of that. It's just ridiculous. But I think in that. Go on, Blake, sorry.
It clearly takes that just on that point. It clearly takes a lot of determination to do it, because we saw it recently where Cowboy Cerrone did clear his nose against Tony Ferguson. He had his nose broke and he cleared it, and his eye just swelled up so quickly and immediately he couldn't see out of it.
Wow.
And the ref had to stop the fight. So that again, that kind of the mental strength and awareness to have to go, my nose is broken. Not only am I going to carry on fighting, but also I'm very aware that if I do the thing that I really want to do, which is clear my nose, the fight might be stopped. The fight could be over. My eye's going to blow up and I won't be able to see properly. That in itself also is just an amazing feat of kind of mental strength and physical toughness as well.
What I was thinking, and I did say to myself, is, you know, when in between rounds, and it's the same with boxing, I assume, but you know, when the coach is saying to him, you need to get around him, you need to do this and you need to do that. I'm thinking, if I put myself in that situation where there's a man that's trying to kick my head in, am I going to be able to think about what I'm being told by the coach? Or are you just going to, I wonder how much they take on board from what their coaches are saying in between the rounds, or whether they just go, well, I've made it this far, so can I just keep doing what I'm doing and make it to the end of the fight? Or do they 100% listen to what the coaches are saying? But like what you're just saying about blowing your nose, because if someone tells you not to do something that your instincts are telling you to do, it's difficult to not do. Do you know what I mean?
That's a fantastic question. And the next time that we talk to a fighter, which will be very soon, I think I'm going to ask that exact question, because, I mean, I'm not qualified to answer that at all. I think that must be so difficult to take on that instructions. And I think that's down to the coaches as well, to make sure they have the awareness of their fighter, not over instruct and overload them with information, but also to make sure they get concisely what they do need to do in there, particularly if the fight's not going their way. I think that must be an amazing skill for a coach to do, and also for the fighter to be able to really take that on board.
Because I guess it's similar in a similar aspect. If you take football, for instance, if you notice that your left midfielder is making good runs and he's making trouble for the right back, you can say at half time, right, make sure you give the ball to the left midfielder, and then he can cause trouble for the right backs, and we can cut in that way. And it's like, how are you then, all of the players then are thinking, right, I need to get it to this left midfielder, or I can just go right and I might be able to get around this way and we might be able to do it that way. And so it's like, how much do you take on board from what your coach is saying? And is that strategy right also? Do you know what I mean? It's interesting to see how much they actually take on board from what the coaches are saying in any sport, I guess.
Well, we spoke to a Cage Warriors fighter called Paddy the Baddy Pimlet last week. And I asked him, like, when you're actually fighting, and there's, you know, he's ridiculously popular in Liverpool, in his hometown, and so sells out, you know, the arena in Liverpool, and they go mad for him. And I was like, can you hear your coach's instructions throughout the fight?
Because they're always shouting as well, aren't they? They're always saying, do this, do this.
And he was saying, look, you do tune in to certain voices. He said, like, literally in the middle of the fight, he said, I can always hear my coach. And he said, and I can always hear, come on, Patrick. He said, I can hear my dad in the audience. And he said he can hear his missus, like, screaming at him as well. And I just thought that was really interesting that, you know, in an arena full of thousands of people, you can still hear the voices that you know, you tune yourself into. So in regards to, like, you know, taking on board information in between rounds, didn't go there. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting in regards to kind of having instructions thrown at you in the middle of it, sometimes the coach's voices, you know, they tune into it, and it does find its way through. I thought it was pretty interesting when you told me that.
I wonder if the sport has changed any, because obviously elite sports have been able to go ahead without fans. And I wonder if the standard has changed, dropped, or improved throughout not having fans there. Because I guess if you're just trying to put it into context, if you've got so many people screaming, go on, Blake, go on, it gives you that extra drive. I've got people here, and it gives you that extra adrenaline. And I wonder if the standard has dropped, say, improved, or not with not having fans there. You know, I wonder if that's made a bit of a difference.
I've heard a couple of different fighters talk about it. I think it seems to depend on the fighters. Some fighters really thrive off of a crowd.
Like Darren Till, he's the Liverpool guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's very much like, he's got such a strong fan base. I think it's the same with Liverpool in general. Liverpool have got such a good supportive network of people, whether it be musicians, actors, you know, they all stick together and really get behind their own, don't they? So I think people maybe like for Darren Till, maybe it might affect him, or I don't know.
I think it depends on their mindset, because I think some people really thrive off it. Other people think it's added pressure. Like there's a theory that Conor McGregor, I mean, there's so many factors, and you can't take away at all from what Dustin Poirier did in that rematch. But a lot of people were saying that with that fight week, the fact that there was no real fans at the press conference, there was no fans leading up to the fight, then they get into the arena and there's no real fans in there. I think there was maybe 2,000 fans. There was hardly anyone in comparison to what there would be for your normal average Conor fight. And everyone was saying in the lead up to that fight, this is only going to benefit Dustin Poirier, because Conor has a history of defeating fighters before they get to the octagon, using the crowd. The crowd get on top of the opposing fighter. Particularly the Irish fans love him so much, and they'll be on that fighter. Then they go down to the ring. You hear the ole oles, which you actually heard in this fight as well. The Irish fans giving it the ole oles early on in the McDonald Lawler fight. So I think it will definitely play a part for some. But then some fighters, I think they say there's some fighters that are amazing in the gym, and then it gets to the big night under the big lights, and they never perform as well. And I suppose with less of a crowd, no audience watching them, they might feel like it's more like a sparring session and be more comfortable. So it really depends on the mentality of the individual fighter, I think.
Yeah, I guess like you're just saying, because Conor McGregor's got such a passionate fan base. I mean, I think it's probably, McGregor was probably the only reason that I started. Probably the first UFC fight I ever watched was a McGregor fight, and because he's got that, everyone's talking about him, everyone's going, oh McGregor, and he's got such a, like you said, he defeats people before he even gets into the octagon. He's so like, he's just so strong upstairs, isn't he? And he believes in what he's saying so much. It's kind of like, I just think the fan base that guy's got, it's just incredible. Do you think he changed the UFC? Do you think he helped make the UFC what it is now today?
Yeah, without Conor McGregor, it's not as popular without Conor McGregor. It's definitely drawn so many more eyes to the sport. I think journalists, I think I've even heard either other journalists or Dana White himself say that when it's a McGregor fight week, journalists from all sorts of publications come and take part in the fight week and are asking fighters questions and are getting involved in the stories. And on your regular fight week, all you've got is the traditional MMA journalists. And as much as maybe some purists will dislike Conor and certain aspects and things of what he's done, and maybe even some of them, because there's a slight thing with the MMA community that they go, oh, you're just a Conor fan, or you're like, you've only got here since Conor's been here, and it's all that. But at the end of the day, if Conor's bringing more eyes to the sport and he's bringing more fans to the sport that will stick around once he's gone, that's only ever going to benefit the sport itself and the fighters in terms of fighter pay, pay-per-view money, sponsorship deals, all of that stuff
so much for the sport.
Has only improved because of Conor McGregor.
Yeah. I heard in one of the press conferences with McGregor, and he said, I've taken you from a 50k fighter to a £5 million fighter or something like that. And I just think, because his arrogance is just like, but like we were saying before, he's either, I'm right in thinking he's the most successful UFC fighter? Has he won more than anybody else?
In terms of money, he's the most successful UFC fighter. In terms of fame and probably followers on social media, he's the most successful UFC fighter. But in terms of achievements in the cage, he's very good and he's achieved some great things. But I could probably reel off 5 off the top of my head right now that you would say have achieved more than Conor McGregor in the cage in terms of their records and title defenses and who's like in terms of the MMA conversation. Conor McGregor is never seen as like the greatest of all time, alongside like the John Jones, GSP, Anderson Silvas, and Amanda Nunes now as well. Yeah, you would never really put Conor in that category. However, he's done some phenomenal things, and he definitely has changed the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2-weight world champion as well was that's an achievement, right?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, and he was the first to ever do that as well, and he paved the way for other fighters to do it. But then you would have to say there's a caveat of he never defended either of those titles. So you know, there's that as well. But it's definitely, it's one of those interesting conversations that you hear all the time. But I would say that the hardcore MMA fans always get you see them on Twitter get very wound up when people start throwing Conor's name into that conversation.
He's very much precious about it. He's very much, you love him or hate him, McGregor, and he's got that sort of.
I think so.
And that's why you want to watch him, Tommo, because you either want to watch him win or you want to see him get his ass kicked. And that's it.
I tell you what, though, I did wake up early to watch the McGregor Mayweather, when he went to the boxing ring, and that was just mental. Like I actually can't believe that they managed to pull that off. It's just and I mean, fair shits to him for getting in the ring with arguably the best boxer of all time, and it's like. I don't know. I mean, it would be. Imagine if it was the other way around. Imagine if Mayweather came to the octagon. I mean, that would be a mess, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be a different game.
It would just never happen.
No, there's too many other facets to the game. I mean, as soon as you've got a boxing stance, if someone's allowed to kick your leg, you're in trouble. And then if they put you on your back, what do? There's just too many factors. But then having said that, any UFC fighter that goes over, or MMA fighter that goes over to boxing and faces a really high level boxer in boxing rules is probably going to get beat as well. They're just different sports, you know. Yeah. It's cricket and baseball. It's different.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I'd say a fair play to him. I mean, the amount of money that them two made from that fight is it's
ridiculous.
Yeah, nearly as much as Blake earned for the in-betweeners, I heard. Not quite.
I wish that was true so much.
But you know what you say about Conor going over. I mean, we'd never have thought we would have seen the biggest superstar in MMA go and fight the biggest superstar in boxing. That was bananas. But that again, not to want to keep passing more accolades on to Conor, because he's had enough of that. But he did then paved the way for so many UFC fighters and MMA fighters to now start boxing. You know, we're seeing MVP fighting under David Hayner, as a boxer as well. He's boxing, and we're seeing, former UFC, like superstar Ben Askren is now probably going to earn more money fighting. What's the YouTuber called?
Jake Paul.
Yep. Crazy, right?
Imagine being
so
Jake
not
Paul
interested in
calling
that fight.
Conor McGregor out. Oh my god, what an idiot, man! That's incredible. Honestly, imagine if McGregor had just turned around and gone, "Yeah, all right, come on then." Yeah, that would have just been. Oh, I'd get up at 5 a.m. to watch that. I would be up at 5 a.m. and I would pay £100 for a ticket for.
Well, I just want to sort of pull back onto the Rory fight, because there's just a bit. We'll get to the last round, but for me, the moment is at the end of the fourth, when basically the bell goes and they stop, and neither of them fuck off, and Robbie spits literally a mouthful of blood on the floor, and then just stares at him. And Rory don't back off, and they just stand there. And I've never seen that before in UFC. And it was just you just think, both of these are fucking lunatics. Like,
and especially because the commentators spoke at the beginning and they said that there's a massive amount of respect between them, the pair of them. And it's like you must be so lost in the moment to then lose that respect, because I assume that quite a few of the fighters are probably really good friends. And it's, you've then got to get in the ring and essentially hurt someone so much that they can't function anymore. Yeah. And it's like you said, that sort of all respect goes out of the window then. Because I remember having just watched the fight this morning. I remember seeing them two do that, and I thought, God, they must be so riled up, and everything's just gone out of the window now, and they're just so that they're at war, aren't they? They're at battle with each other.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's exactly such a poignant moment in the fight, Stu, because for me, I'd go even further as to say that's when Robbie won the fight and when Rory lost the fight. Because for me, Robbie, after round 3 nearly getting finished, the start of round 4 could, not far off from being finished. Then he comes back and the momentum seems to have shifted back towards Robbie a bit more at the end of that 4th round. And as you say, he spits on the floor and he squares up towards him. And I feel like Rory was about to walk back to the cage and he looked at Robbie. And he felt like, I have to stand here and show determination. But Robbie's was real. Robbie's was like, I'm showing you I'm going nowhere. Right now, we're at war before we even come back out for round 5. And I'm telling you right now, I'm here. I'm going nowhere. You've had your best moment in the fight and there's no way you're getting rid of me in this fight. And Rory, I felt, looked slightly deflated. Just as a little bit of him, I thought just crumbled and went, my chance to finish you is gone.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that's the moment, because round 5 doesn't last very long.
And in that break, Robbie's corner is going, he's broken, finish him. He's broken. This is your time. This is the most important 5 minutes of your life now. He is a broken man. Go and finish him. And, oh, mate, he's just, it doesn't make me think about one of the 2 things I want to sort of mention here. Firstly, when Rogan mentions that, I think when Robbie was fighting in the UFC for the first time, Rory McDonald was 10 years old. So I think Robbie had been fighting for 15 years at this point.
Yeah.
And Rory as well was the first fighter that people were saying, Tommo, was the first fully rounded fighter to come into the UFC, rather than he was a boxer that learned jiu-jitsu or he was a wrestler that learned to box. He was one of the first that come through with an all-round skill set, trained as a mixed martial artist. And they were saying he was like the real front runner and the success story of the first, MMA fighter. But the thing I want to ask you, Tommo, 1 round in, who did you want to win?
I don't know really, because like I say, with the first round, it was very much like it was just sizing each other up. I mean, there wasn't a point in the fight where I thought, oh, I want someone specific to win, until when Lawler is taking his beat down, when Rory's all over him. At that point, I wanted Rory to win, because obviously Lawler had been all over him for the first couple of rounds, and then he found that heart and that passion to then give him a good bit of a hiding, and that's when I wanted him to win. But when it then turned around and Lawler, like we said, he found it, and like Blake just said before, he sort of passed out on the only opportunity he was going to get to finish him. Then I was sort of like, oh God, the passion from him's now made me want him to win. So it was sort of a bit of roller coaster of emotions, really, because I guess it was kind of like I like to see people who are digging deep. There's nothing better than, when Watford saved the penalty a couple of years ago and then took the ball up the other end and got promoted. I think they got promoted or won the cup. But that sort of that passion where you think someone's down and out, and then they get up and then they're then fighting for it more than ever. So that sort of at that point, that's where I just sort of, I was backing Rory at first, and then I turned it round to Lawler. So yeah, it was a bit of both, really.
It's the Rocky film, isn't it? It is the whole Rocky thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Or both
of them are Rocky.
Or the Tyson Fury getting up off the floor. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that I don't know what that was. That was just something.
I genuinely thought someone had shot him.
Yeah.
I thought he'd been shot because he's just out. He's just out. And then, I mean, some of the memes that are going around of that of him. Some of it. I think there's one called No Context Tyson Fury on Instagram, and it's just some of the things that people come up with are just incredible.
And well, let's touch on the last round. And I mean, it was short-lived, but for me, I just think it was just Rory's nose.
You could see. He's like he went from man to boy, didn't he? He put his hands over his face, and even I said to myself, when it hit him on the nose, you could see straight away that was it for him. And then he went down to the floor with his hands over his head, and then Lawler's just jumps. I guess that's what they do until the ref stops it. You've got to go for it. But I remember thinking, just leave him alone. He's had enough. Leave him alone.
Totally. I mean, it's that moment where you can see that it's like, it's not the blow that's put him down. It's just that there's nothing left to give. There's a real sadness to it, actually, because that's the type of fight. Obviously, you don't want anyone to take more damage than they have to take, and nothing long term and all that kind of stuff. But it's slightly sad in a way that it couldn't finish on like a decision, because both of them deserve to make it through the entirety of that fight and both stand there. But you could just tell that like it was like a jab or something, and then it was like he thinks about it for a split second and goes, no, I just can't. It's just too much. It's too bad. And then he goes down with Robbie still swinging. It was slightly sad to watch.
Yeah, it really was. It was, yeah. Because like you said, you could almost see, you could just see everything just fell out of him from that. And like Blake just said, it was only a jab. I mean, he's just spent 20 minutes getting jabbed in the head and whatnot. But yeah, as soon as he sort of put his hands up, it was almost just like you really felt for him, when he went to the floor, and it's kind of like, yeah, you could just see his whole soul just leave his body. And it was, and then Lawler just proceeds to dive on him and keep hitting him in it. I'm like, leave him alone.
I mean, we're talking about the state of like Rory McDonald's face here, but then as soon as the ref stops it and you see a jubilant Robbie Lawler turn around and scream yes, you also notice then that Lawler's got another mouth, like literally, a tear straight through his lip. No,
none of the commentators, no one mentions it.
I would be like, and also what I was thinking as well is actually, I'm glad you said that, because it reminded me is, when they go to the corners, when they're getting everything checked, and they're getting these what essentially are tea towels, aren't they? They're just towels, and they're rubbing them across these open cuts, and I'm thinking that must wreck. I'd be sat there going, just be gentle. Come on,
just dab, little dab.
Yeah, just dab. Let's dab it. But they're ripping it. But yeah, I remember seeing his lip and just thinking, oh my God, am I going home to your family? And they're just seeing that. You'd be like, oh. Yeah.
So there's this amazing photo after the fight that I think we should put up on our socials, Stu, of after that fight, the two of them are in hospital getting their checkups done and all that, and they're together like hugging after this just amazing fight. I'll send it to you as well, Tom. It's an amazing photo. Once you've watched that fight, that photo is amazing. It's incredible, and we'll put it up on the socials for people as well.
I do love to see that, the respect in the sport, and also in boxing, because people don't realize how much respect actually goes into that. My little brother Zach, he's 8 years old, and I keep saying to my stepmom, you should maybe take him boxing, or maybe I can take him boxing, and she's worried, and I'm saying, if anything, it will help him growing up to respect, the respect that you've got to have for your coaches and things like that. It's and I always love to see it. And sometimes, particularly with McGregor, he had the whole thing going on with Khabib was the big fight, wasn't it, recently? Everything that's going on in there, and then you think, God, I hope you wonder how real that is. And then at the end, I'm not sure if they did they shake hands at the end of that fight, or did Khabib say,
oh no, no, there was a big scuffle. People ran in the cage, like a couple of Khabib's team ran in the cage to fight Conor. Khabib jumped out of the cage and went after Dylan Dennis, who was one of Conor's cornermen. It was just the opposite. And I think that's gone down as one of the darkest kind of pre-fight press conferences and fight weeks and just one of the darkest kind of MMA.
I know he went in
really
big time. You know, he said things that he shouldn't have said, but you know, because I always think, oh, you know, a lot of the times, because McGregor's very good at selling fights, isn't he? He's very good at selling.
Oh yeah,
and that's what he does.
Arguably the best. Yeah.
I remember seeing things in the news and the things that he'd said and on Twitter and whatnot, and yeah, I just remember hearing the things that he'd said and just thinking, Jesus, that's a bit far, that. So then when he went and beat him, it was kind of a bit bittersweet. You know, you're kind of a bit like, well, you deserved everything you got there. So, yeah. I hope he's not listening and comes and finds me, McGregor. Jesus. I reckon I'd take him anyway. I reckon I'd do McGregor.
Wonderful. Well, we always like to sort of finish the fight off, like, Tommo, by asking guests if they were to have a scrap.
Mm-hmm.
We want to know the most important things about your fight prep. We want to know what song you'd want to walk out to the octagon to and what your fight name's going to be.
Well, I was saying this to Blake. I'm kind of like, I would very much, I'd come out to something very comedy, and I'd make them something silly, almost like like something like Baby Shark or something. Right? And then my opponent would be thinking, hang on, he's not got much about him, this lad, has he? And then as soon as I got to like the door of the octagon, then I'd throw it into like Zombie Nation or something that'd get me riled up. So yeah, I'd sort of a bit of mix of both. I'd be getting in their heads and I'd be thinking he's, you know, Thomas Turgoose here. I don't think he's much because he's got Baby Shark playing, and then I get to the door, and then Zombie Nation kicks in, and then I'd be diving in, and it'd get me adrenaline going. I think
the crowd would love Baby Shark. I think they get so into it. It'd be brilliant.
They'll all be standing there like this.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be I reckon that would be an all-time classic walkout. If someone walks down to the cage to Baby Shark, and all the fans are giving it the old.
Oh, I tell you what, if Dana White takes this, I want some money from him. Otherwise, there'll be trouble.
And so, as they introduce you, what are they calling you?
Well, I like to think. I haven't had a playground fight per se, or a fight for a very long time now. But when I was a kid, I was a bit of a tearaway. But I'm one of them fighters, or used to be. I mean, I'll do anything to win the fight. I mean, I'll be biting, scratching, I'll be gouging. Because I always think, because if I'm having a fight with someone, I'm not there to be friends with them. I'm there to hurt them and get them away from me. So I'm just a bit of a nasty fighter, really. So I think I'd be called Thomas the Gouger Turgoose.
Nice.
Thomas the Eye Gouger Turgoose, I think I'd be called. Yeah, I would like to do it in the voice of Bruce Buffer, but I'm afraid I'd sound like a moron. Yeah. Thomas the Eye Gouger Turgoose walked out to Baby Shark. Yeah.
Oh, incredible. Well, as we start to wrap this up, Tommo, tell us what you're up to. What's happening?
What am I up to at the moment? I mean, I'm just getting very, very good at Call of Duty, FIFA. I'm sort of spending a lot of time playing those. Work-wise, there's nothing sort of set in stone at the moment, obviously because of COVID. But I've been busy with the releasing of a few things that I've done. There was a film that I did called Looted that was released sort of earlier on in the year or late last year. So I've been sort of busy with press for that. Creation Stories, which is the Alan McGee film. So that's out on Saturday, the 20th of March, which I assume will already be out when this podcast's out, which is available on Sky Cinema. I did a series for Sky One called Intergalactic, which is a drama set in outer space. So that was very, very fun to do. So yeah, and hopefully we can get to go back and do that again later on in the year for another series, but who knows? But yeah, it's a bit unknown territory at the moment, isn't it? Because everyone's on the back foot, because it costs so much to start up. Well, Blake will notice, and used to, that it costs so much money to get a set up and running. One case of COVID can just put a full stop to that at the moment. So it's kind of like, yeah.
Well, I've had 3 jobs postponed because of COVID. So it's just, it's a killer. But you sound like you've done loads of stuff going on. You start off going, oh, all I'm doing is playing Call of Duty. And then you're like, but I've got this out and I've got this out. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and make sure you check this out on Sky. And we might be getting a second series of this. So to be honest, Tom, you can fuck right off, mate. You're giving it the old, I'm not working. And then you're listing off 4 projects.
That's his all pre-COVID. Since COVID started, I've not been, you know, I've not been behind a camera that's not attached to my laptop like now. You know, the job that I was on, the series that finished because of COVID, and it's like just starting to go a bit. I mean, I'm not the one that sat abroad filming now, Blake. You know, I'm sat in my bedroom.
Yeah.
I had to make my bed for this podcast because it'd be in the background. You know.
Whereas I've got the lovely shots of the Kiev skyline back there and stuff.
Look at that, man. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Tommo, if people want to keep up to speed with all the upcoming projects, where's the best place for people to keep up to speed with you?
I mean, I do a lot of social media, but mainly, Blake will know this, I'm used to, I just post photos of food and my wife, really. I should, my agent and stuff are like, maybe you should put a bit more work stuff on your Instagram. It's like, nah. Because no one really cares. I've noticed that when I put work things on, no one really cares for it on Twitter. I can put like the poster for creation stories on Instagram and it can get however many likes. But as soon as I put like a Sunday dinner on there, everyone loses the shit. I don't think anyone cares for my work, but just Instagram, really. Yeah.
Well, you know what you need to do with your free time, Tom, is watch a bunch of MMA. That's what you need to be doing, mate.
Yeah,
that's it.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. No, thanks, lads. I really enjoyed that. It was good fun.
Oh, thanks, loads, Tommo.
It's been a pleasure, mate.
Yeah. Cheers, boys. Take care.